How's it going, guys? My name's Honcho and welcome to another squad video. In today's video, we're taking a look at the heavy anti-tank weapons that are in squad as of version 3.0. I'm going to quickly show you how to use each launcher in about 60 seconds or less. The only exception to this though will be the British NLAW. Each launcher will be time-stamped to make it easier to rewatch or fast forward to the part that you need. Before that, there's some important particulars that apply to all of the heavy AT kits that you really should know. First is arming distance. This is the distance a projectile must travel before the projectile can detonate, which means if you are too close to a target, your projectile won't arm and you'll hear an embarrassingly loud thud sound. This is usually followed up by someone laughing at you and the vehicle killing you. The heavy AT kit's arming distances differentiate for each kit. 22 meters for the RPG-7 and RPG-7 V2 tandem round. The Gustaf, SMAW, RPG-28 and 29 need between 40 and 50 meters, and the British NLAW requires a minimum of 65 meters. Next up is shot placement. Ideally, you want to disable the vehicle first to stop the vehicle from escaping. A big thing to keep in mind here is that sometimes the track hitbox on vehicles can absorb the damage from your tandem rounds. It's worth putting your less damaging round into the track to knock it off, leaving the hitbox wide open for the tandem to penetrate effectively. Engine decks are also another great way to immobilize a vehicle. They're usually one of the weaker parts of the vehicle. You can also work with someone who is using a light AT kit and get them to immobilize a vehicle, enabling you to follow up with your shot extremely quickly. If you get the chance for a perfect shot on a tracked vehicle, aiming for their ammo rack can be devastating. You can take them out in one shot and you get to see them cook off as a reward. To see where each vehicle's ammo rack is, check out the vehicle X-ray view on Jensen's training range. Here you can find where all the hitboxes are and armor placement. Now when it comes to aiming, there's a few tips that can dramatically improve your aim. Holding left shift is the most noticeable one. This makes you hold your breath and will steady your aim for approximately 10 seconds. On some launchers, it also zooms in for a better view. Crouching or going prone also improves the accuracy significantly and gives you a slightly longer steady time. Some of the launchers will allow you to set the range of your sights using X and scroll wheel, but it's worth noting that if you set your sight to 300 meters for your tandem round, when you switch to your high explosive, the range will go back to 100 meters. These values will stay at whatever you have set them to until you respawn. That is when they go back to default. You can see what they are set to in the bottom right of your screen. Okay, it's time to get into the launchers and we shall go through them nation by nation. The Aussies use the M3 MAAW, or more commonly known as the Gustaf. The optic is nice to read and clear. It is set to 50 meters at default and increases in 50 meter increments shown by the plus and minus symbol. You can set the range of this using X and scroll wheel, but that's just user preference. Its maximum accurate effective range is 500 meters. The tandem round will deal the most damage and has the most pronounced trajectory, so keep that in mind if you're in a tight space. The high explosive anti-tank round has a lot more velocity, and this is the round that you should use first as it's perfect to immobilize vehicle. On the kit that runs a hollow point optic, you get an additional 2 smoke rounds that you can use. These are perfect to provide cover or blind enemy with, or doink infantry. Like the Aussies, the Canadians use the Gustaf, only they use the M2 version. The optic has no range indicators on it, so you have to set the ranging manually by holding X and the scrolling wheel. Again, your tandem round is the one to deal the most damage, but has a higher arc in its trajectory. The high explosive anti-tank round does about 20% of the damage the tandem round does, so again, it's best to use to immobilize the vehicle. The kit with the hollow sight gets 2 high explosive rounds. These are best used on infantry or vehicles with no armor. Okay, so this one's a little more in-depth compared to the other AT kits. The NLAW is completely unique and by far the most advanced weapon system out of all of them. This is because it has predictive line of sight. PLOS allows you to fire at a moving target. The launcher will calculate the trajectory of said target after you have successfully locked on. It also has a direct fire mode which you can toggle by pressing X and using the scroll wheel. This basically makes the launcher point and click. The NLAW has a maximum operating range of 600 meters. After then, the projectile runs out of propellant. It's like having a handheld tow launcher with a fire and forget system. It's also worth noting that it can only track targets that are moving horizontally, not vertically. You also get an NLAW, which can be ranged up to 400 meters, perfect for immobilizing vehicles. The iron sight rifle kit also gets a hand grenade as a little bonus. Both insurgents and the regular militia use the same heavy AT kits and rifles, so the rules here apply to both. First up is the RPG-7. The tandem round on the RPG-7 has a maximum accurate range of 150 meters and has the lowest velocity of all of the heavy AT kits, but it is devastating if it does hit. Heat can be effectively aimed to 500 meters and is your lower damaging projectile, so use this one to immobilize. You also get 2 fragmentation projectiles, but these are only effective against infantry. The RPG-29 is unique as it gives you 2 tandem rounds to play with. It also has the longest arming and reload animations. The iron sights can be set up to a maximum of 400 meters, but could easily travel further due to the high velocity. The Middle Eastern Alliance Heavy AT kit is also the RPG-29. This is the same as the Insurgent RPG-29, only it has a proper optic. It's set to 100 meters and increases in 100 meter increments up to 800 meters total. Just like militia and insurgents, you get 2 tandem rounds and a painfully slow reload. Russia gets 2 very different hat kits to choose from. The first is the RPG-7V2. It has the most complex looking optic in the game, but it's actually very simple. For the tandem round, the marks you generally want to be using are in the bottom half, but the plus at the very top is for 25 meters, and then in the mess in the middle is 50, and after that you have 100, 150 and 200 in the bottom half. For the heat rounds, it's in the top half you need to read, with the small plus being 100 meters, then down to 500 meters respectively. The RPG-28 launcher is ranged to 100 meters, which is the plus sign at the very top of the optic. The 2 chevrons are 300 and 500 meters. The heat round is fired from the RPG-26 launcher, which can be ranged to 250 meters with those rather funky adjustable irons. One thing to note about the Russian AT optics is they both have a stadiometric rangefinder inside that is calibrated for vehicles, whereas the binoculars that all AT kits use are calibrated to infantry. To learn how to use stadiometric rangefinding, click the pop-up on screen now or check the description down below for the video link direct. Just like the Aussies, the US Army use the Gustaf, 0 to 50 meters and can be increased up to 500 meters, but it is also marked on the optic in 50 meter increments. The tandem round is the projectile that will deal the most damage and it has a high vertical trajectory, so keep that in mind if you're in a tight space. The high explosive anti-tank round has a lot more velocity, and this is the round that you should use first as it's perfect to immobilize vehicles. On the kit that runs the iron sights, you get an additional 2 smoke rounds. These are perfect for cover or blinding the enemy, or to target infantry. And finally, we have the US Marine Corps using the SMAW. The sight is pretty basic to read despite having no numbers on it. Its central point is ranged to 100 meters and increases in 100 meter increments. The SMAW has a unique feature, and that is the spotting rifle. This is basically a rifle on the side of the launcher that is set to ballistically match the trajectory of the main projectile, so is a perfect way to range find enemy vehicles with no assistant. Simply tap a few shots and follow where the tracer lands. Another key fact here is you can also take out infantry with this. The heavy armor round is the tandem equivalent, so save this for the kill shot or one bang in enemy lodges if you want to send the enemy team a message. The dual purpose does considerably less damage, but still reasonably effective against vehicles as well as infantry. So that's all of the launchers covered and how to use them. Now this last tip I'll give goes for both light and heavy AT kits. Projectiles can damage radios, emplacements, and my favorite is you can use it to disable a vehicle repair station. So if you have found a vehicle repairing on one, fire your heat or high explosive round into it, then they can't get fixed. Naturally, this strat has its risks, but don't they all? Now I don't want to bore you all with tactics and methods on how to play these kits. I wanted to keep this video as concise as possible, so I hope you've enjoyed this video and learnt something from it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Links to all my socials are down below. Take care, and I will catch you next time.